And we begin with an exhaustive survey conducted by the News 18 Pulse. This News 18 Pulse survey on Bharat's mood on One Nation, One Election. For the next few minutes, here on the right stand, we'll decode for viewers Bharat's pulse on One Nation, One Election and this entire issue. And this is on a day when the JPC on One Nation, One Election met for the first time. It's a one-of-a-kind national survey. How many respondents are actually backing One Nation, One Election? Does Bharat welcome the idea of One Nation, One Election? Will voters get confused while picking somebody for the Lok Sabha and simultaneously voting for someone as assembly candidates? So the MP and the MLA. Will One Nation, One Election help governments make better policy decisions? Will it be poll-oriented policy or nation-oriented policy? 9 questions on these lines. Exhaustive responses pan Bharat. 29 states and union territories covered. Only here on the right stand tonight, we get you the details about what does Bharat think about One Nation, One Election. We break down the details. Now remember viewers, your channel is bringing this exhaustive survey, like I said, on a day when the JPC met on ONOE. Now, Payal Mehta also got us an exclusive scoop on the post the discussion after the meeting. Now, in the discussion, post this entire meeting and briefing, members have urged the JPC chairman, Mr. PPC Chaudhary, to seek an extension of 3 years for this committee to submit the report. Members of both sides have urged the chairman to request Parliament to give an extension of 3 years. The chairman has assured that he will speak with the Lok Sabha Speaker and request for this extension. The extension can happen only once Parliament convenes and a motion is moved on the floor of the House. So clearly, it is going to take time. Now here at CNN News 18, we had already told you that the entire aspect of One Nation, One Election is planned for the 2034 Lok Sabha and Assembly elections thereafter. So there is time, not just to build consensus, but also to vet this entire process thoroughly so that going forward, it becomes the norm. That's how the democratic process of Bharat, the electoral process, will then be conducted. Now let's try and understand the methodology of the survey first up. 4,573 respondents. They were interviewed across 29 states and union territories. Data collection was done between the 23rd and the 31st of December 2024. 81.7% of the respondents were between the age of 26 and 55. And almost 68% indicated that they had college or higher education. So let's quickly go through the questions that we have already revealed here on the network. The first question, do you support simultaneous polls for Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha? 80% of the respondents said, yes, we do support simultaneous polls for the Lok Sabha and the Vidhan Sabha. Naysayers were 16. Those who did not have an opinion, don't know, can't say, were 4%. Question number 2. Do you believe simultaneous polls will save public money? 81% replied in the affirmative. They believed, yes, public money, public time will be saved. 13% said no, 6% were not sure. Question number 3. Will One Nation, One Election reduce disruptions like traffic jams, school closures, and other aspects due to campaigning, due to elections that generally disrupt public life? 81% replied in the affirmative. Yes, they said. 13% said no, 6% were not sure. Question number 4. Will the voter get confused while picking the Lok Sabha candidate and the Assembly candidate? Will they really get confused? Will they get swayed? 39% said yes, perhaps yes, but nearly 50%, 49% said no. There won't be a confusion, there will be clarity. This is not going to perhaps skew the decision of the voter in favor of one or the other entity, either the state entity or the national entity. Now, will One Nation, One Election help governments make better policy decisions? Now, this is the critical part. Poll-driven policy or nation-driven policy? What kind of politics and policy making do we want as a democracy, as a nation? Do we want netas to think about what's going to work or get them votes in the next election? Or should they look at how is it that we're going to help the country grow? 71% believe that simultaneous polls will also help better policy decisions, perhaps more coordination between state and center, and unified policies between state and center. Those are the aspects that came through. 18% believe no, it's not going to change. Not sure is 11%. The next question, question number 6. Do you think voting on the same day for national and state elections could confuse the voter? 56% said no, and this is specifically with respect to party. So 36% said yes, 56% said no, it's not going to confuse the voter, not just in this case of candidate, but in this case of party. No, there will be no confusion. The 7th question, will holding all elections on the same day improve voter turnout? Will we have more voters coming out to vote when all the voting is happening only on one particular day? 72% said yes, 18% said no, 10% were not sure. They didn't know what's going to happen in this case. But the sentiment on ground was for the voter to come out again and again. There is voter fatigue. There is also cadre fatigue of trying to draw the voters time and again. So both these can be negated if the polls or the polling happens simultaneously. Let's now take you through the remaining 2 questions. Question number 8. Do you think Bharat should follow the likes of the United States, Germany, Canada, their model of simultaneous elections? 69% have come out and said yes, 15% have said no. There are 16% who can't say because they actually don't know what is the format actually followed for simultaneous polls in these countries. Could that format be different, but the intent be the same? Well, they don't know, they can't say. But yes, there is an overwhelming inclination towards simultaneous polls. Somewhere the insight that comes to the fore is whatever be the eventual format and the methodology or the rules that is agreed upon by the parliamentarians in consensus and overall democratically, the public sentiment says we are tired of a continuous perennial cycle of elections. Can we get out of election mode, please? Can we do it just once in 4 years, 5 years, however it is? That's the sentiment. Another question, the final question. Question number 9. Will simultaneous elections weaken or strengthen democracy, Bharatiya democracy? 70% say it will go to further strengthen democracy. 13% say democracy will be weakened. There is a good 17%, nearly 20%, 17% who say it's not going to impact democracy. Things are going to remain the same. It's not going to make such a big difference overall in terms of democracy. A lot of them felt our democracy is already very strong and it's already very vibrant. So that's the reason why it's not going to impact. There are others who believe, ऐसे करो, वैसे करो, जो जैसा चल रहा है वैसे ही चलेगा. That's also a sentiment. But there is an overwhelming 70% which believes this will also strengthen democracy. Now let's take the conversation forward with our guests. Zafar Islam, national spokesperson of the BJP with us. Anand Ranganathan, author, scientist, political commentator with us. Kamru Chaudhary, political analyst, leans away from the BJP. Let's say that. S. Dharnidharan of the DMK, also with us. My namaste, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Let's have a engaging conversation because I know there will be multiple points of view, but perhaps we can all keep the larger interest of the country forward rather than our own individual political dispositions, because those who are in power today may be in opposition tomorrow, those who are in opposition today may be in power tomorrow. But however it is, would you in the larger interest of the country and as a politician, as a neta, someone, want to get out of this perennial electoral mode? What's going to get me votes? What's not going to get me votes? What's going to keep my kursi safe? What's not going to keep my kursi safe? Lok Sabha done, assembly shuru, assembly done, council elections to do, council done, panchayat shuru. We are in a continuous mode. Now we've started the year bang again with another electoral campaign, that is Delhi. So as Dharnidharan, let's start with you, sir. What's your thought process?
Yes. No. Firstly and foremost, we think the one nation and one election should not happen, and it's anti-federal. I did see your analysis which says Germany has simultaneous election. I think it's the wrong info. It was actually written in the government of India one nation one election plan also. In fact, in Germany, some states even have different duration. In Germany, the state elections are conducted by the State Election Commission. National elections are conducted by the National Election. And for example, in Berlin, the elections were in 2018, it's supposed to happen in 2023, and Munich 21 are supposed to happen in 26. So they don't have simultaneous elections. And again, US example cannot be valid because they have a presidential system and not a Westminster system. And
Correct.
if you look at most countries that follow Westminster system, don't have simultaneous elections. I'll tell you, the research says, like there have been a lot of research, both done nationally and internationally, which says if you have national elections and state elections, subnational elections together, the salience of national issues higher, which means that issues such as foreign policy, defense would have more preference, and state issues such as healthcare, education would not have more importance when people vote. So then, as political parties or rational actors, these issues may take a backseat. Day-to-day issues, healthcare, municipality, education. This is the problem, and research was done by a lot of professors. I'll quote one research done by Professor of Nottingham from Italy, when Italy had at some point of time simultaneous elections, and they saw that spending on state level issues reduced when simultaneous elections were held. And again, there's another data which says when India had when simultaneous elections were held in India, or still held, some states have elections with the national elections. In such cases, 75%, right, of the people vote for the same party. But then, when the elections are held separate, even after 6 months, that reduces to 40%. So that itself says if simultaneous elections are held, then they vote for the same party 75% of the time, and not held only 40% of the time. So, which again shows that that people vote for national issues and state issues may take a backseat. And another proposition is that they say the cost of elections is reduced, but the money allocated for elections in 2022 to 2023 was only 400 odd crores, which is like 0.001% of the entire Indian GDP. So it is a minuscule amount. And if you have only elections together, then you have to buy more EVM machines, and that's going to cost more. So I think cost, I don't think is the reason. And again, another research says if you have frequent elections, then politicians like us will have to meet the people more often, which means we will be willing to do more of their needs, satisfy more of their needs. Otherwise, the elections happen only once in 5 years. And more importantly, we had the system from 1950s onwards until 67. We had one nation election. It failed because certain state governments were dissolved. They lost confidence. And again, we didn't have the system by design. It was because we got independence, all the elections had to be held together. That's why the process continued. And one more question: what happens if a state government is dissolved after 3.5 years? Would we have a state election only for 1.5 years? Because it takes 6 months to conduct the election. So which means we have election only for 1 year, or be presidential rule. And presidential rule for a year is not desirable. Point one. And another important point is that from 96 to 2001, we had at least in 96, 98, and then 99 and 2001. At least then, states were stable, right? State governments not get dissolved. Here in this case, we have an election in 96 for all the states, 98 for all the states, 99 for all the states, and again for 2000 for all the states. Which means many of the decision making lies with the states. The states will also be paralyzed decision making, but 96 to 2001.
It's a very interesting
because states not
interesting analogy. There are some counters to some of the points you made, but there are a lot of valid concerns that you've raised too. And clearly, that is something that all political parties need to thrash threadbare. Zafar Islam, would you want to respond? And your thoughts?
Well, Anand, your survey has actually put to bed all the concerns the political parties have, the representative of political parties are sounding these days. Because at the end of the day, the election is held primarily for the people of this great country, and if they feel that simultaneous election is important, one nation, one election is important, and benefits you have already spelled out, what are the benefits which will go to the people of this great country, then it is important for us to, as a political party, think. That's why we had the government had first set up a committee. The committee gave a recommendation, the cabinet has passed, this was proposed as a bill to the parliament, and then of course JPC was formed so that the consensus can be arrived with the support of all the political parties, and I'm sure there will be a meeting of mind because it is important. The kind of resources we are wasting purely because every now and then we have election in the country. It's a vast country, it's a big country, several states. Each states have election in a year. In a year, several states have election, and every year we have elections. And the kind of the infrastructure which is required and the money which is resources which is being spent for creating that infrastructure is too huge. And one of the calculation, and I'm sure that you had also mentioned in your program last time when I was there on the program, that 1.5% of GDP will be saved purely because by following one nation and one election. So I'm sure that there are political parties like DMK, he had a different contrary view, but I'm sure that as a representative of a political party, as an Indian, as a citizen of this country, as a political party, you have to understand the aspiration of the people of this country, that why it is important, and then we need to really come up with a solution. I'm sure that I'm very confident that all the political parties who even have a reservation now, after the JPC, they will come around and they'll be meeting of minds, and one nation and one election will become a reality for the benefits of the citizen, for the benefit of the country, for the benefit of the people of this great country. And I have no reservation in telling that those who are opposing will be opposed, will be given a lesson by the people themselves, because every Indian you ask, privately or publicly, they'll say one nation, one election is the best thing which will happen for the country, and this must happen. And I'm sure that the Honorable Prime Minister has heard the sentiments of the people, and that's why he has initiated the process. I'm sure everybody will come around. Those who even have the contrary view will definitely come around, and we will make together, collectively, with the support of every single political party. I do not want to sound anything negative. With the support of every political party, we will make it a reality.
The support of the political parties will also come when certain issues, technical issues, are addressed. So one of the ways to look at it is that when we are in a one nation, one poll or one election cycle, Dr. Ranganathan, it also acts as a deterrent for those who want to topple governments, because it's not going to be for the next 5 years. This entire dissolution of government will be for a shorter period of time. The voter will also see this entire party jumping, defection, all of this engineering which happens time and again. Perhaps there will be a deterrence. When it comes to cost, the cost is like for Lok Sabha today. A very interesting point was made. Delhi was shut down for 2 months. When I say that Delhi was shut down, means administrative paralysis, because it was model code of conduct for Lok Sabha 2024. And then within 6 to 8 months of that, another 1.5 months Delhi will not function, the administrative mechanism, because there is a state election. So we have lost nearly about 60 to 90 days, working days, of the administration for the state of Delhi. That's a lot of time, because annually if you compound it after taking away the public holidays, weekends, etc., overall it's just about 150 to 160 actual days of work. So imagine how much we are hurting administrative work when everything comes to a standstill. Then the incidental costs of these jams, campaigning, disruption, schools being shut down, bureaucrats being pulled away from central duty, administrative duty, etc. These are all costs which are there, which you can't actually quantify, but when you look at it, it's a lot of time, and time is money today. Dr. Ranganathan, your thoughts? Do you agree with Dharnidharan when he raises a few concerns which are technical from a regional perspective or from a political party perspective?
Good evening. Good evening to my fellow panelists. Thank you for this very enriching discussion, and I thank the DMK spokesperson for making great points, as did Zafar Bhai from BJP. According to me, Modi's one nation, one election is against the constitution, against federalism, against diversity, against everything that an Indian voter stands for. But it was none of these when Jawaharlal Nehru implemented it for 15 years. It was none of these when, I'm sure the DMK spokesperson would have read Nanjiku Niti, the autobiography of Karunanidhi ji in his memoirs, when he devoted multiple times pages on advocating for one nation, one election, going so far as to say that the central government must act on this so that we have simultaneous elections. So this volte-face is obviously because Modi has decided to go ahead with it, as is the case with building toilets or with distributing cylinders or giving tap water. Everything that Modi does was promised by the opposition, but the moment Modi fructifies it, like the farm laws, all hell breaks loose. Be that as it may, because some very salient points were raised, I think this nation deserves a debate, and I congratulate you for holding this poll, because the questions that you asked were absolutely pertinent. And as Zafarji said, the answers that were obtained are equally pertinent and important, and the country is tilting towards one nation, one election. Be that as it may, I am right now, yes, also tilting, but still undecided. That's why I think a healthy debate is a prerequisite for this. Let me give you 3 or 4 points out here that are very important, that would add to what the DMK spokesperson said and what Zafar Bhai said as well. The obvious advantage obviously is cost saving. You talked about the money that is spent on elections. Well, according to the Election Commission, the last Lok Sabha elections, 5,000 crores were spent. Well, I don't know who counted them, or whether they were machines that were used by the TMC that were used for counting that. It must be at least 10 times that, and just one party or multiple parties. So obviously tens of thousands of crores is spent on elections. And if you have simultaneous elections, you are going to spend a fraction of that. So yes, obviously in money, you're going to save a lot. The second important thing is the administrative cost. You know, from one state to the other, all around this 5-year cycles, 30 states, general elections, multiple times as well, if the need may be, the administration, the officials, the bureaucrats travel from one place to the other for holding the elections, including the Election Commission that supervises it. All that money, all that effort, time is to be saved. Third, as you rightly said, when you have the model code of conduct, you have a complete new set of administrative things being put in place that are away and beyond from what the normal scheme of things that happen for 5 years. So all that time that is wasted, all that administrative things, that things have to happen in a completely different format than what the normal administration works, that is saved. Another important point is the security forces. As you know, for perpetual electoral cycles, you have to shift tens of thousands of security forces, CRPF Jawans or other army from one state to the other. All that time and effort, as well as of the army and the security forces, is to be saved out here. These are obvious advantages. Of course, many of the answers given by the respondents also add to this. The one disadvantage or counterpoint I can think of is that is not logical, but it's emotional. Be that as it may, Anand, you know, we are very emotional people. So if an event happens of catastrophic proportions, either in a positive light or a negative light, we tend to get swayed. I'll give you the example of the tragic assassination of Mrs. Indira Gandhi in 1984. When the elections were held immediately afterwards, Rajiv Gandhi, who was not even a politician, for 1 year he had joined the party. He got a landslide of 416 seats, the only time in recent memory, Jem, ab ki baar 400 par hua hai. And that was because of the sympathy factor. That was one event that happened, and everything got swayed. And I dare say, had the nation held simultaneous elections, then Congress would have won each and every state. So there are advantages, there are disadvantages, but I would say on the whole, I am tinting towards the sensible, logical thing, which is the time has come for us to hold simultaneous elections.
Right. Would an Akhilesh Yadav not wanted a Uttar Pradesh election around the time when Lok Sabha 2024 happened? So the advantage can swing both ways. Kamru Chaudhary, thank you for your patience. Your thoughts, sir?
Basically, I was going through your questions of the survey, and what I find is very stark similarity in the nature of the questions. Though I'm not discounting the survey, it's a wonderful survey that you have done. But most of the issues that you have raised out here were concerning the voter behavioral issues. Some of the issues that we had flagged as an opposition to the One Nation, One polls was the federal concern. We had raised that federal concern, operational challenges we had raised, then the frequent by-polls in case of a death of a candidate or in case of a state government falling because of defections or some otherwise that we know. There is a high chance of centralization of powers and disruption of autonomy. Then the high initial cost of holding the simultaneous elections. Plus, after any election, we find that the judiciary is overloaded with a number of cases. In this case also, the judicial overload will also be there. But the point out here is that, Anand, we are an electorate. If you count it pan-world, the worldwide you count it, we are 90 countries rolled into one.
Correct.
So we cannot emulate, though we have emulated the constitution of the Western powers, When we have changed it, modified it according to our needs. That's the way we went ahead. But we cannot emulate a German model, American model, or a Russian model to say that this suits us. But the basic thing that is out here is the Article 1 of the Indian Constitution, which says that as a nation, we are a union of states, and each state is a federal, though they are inseparable from the Indian Union, but they have got their autonomy under the federal structure of the Indian Constitution.
Right.
Now, why I oppose this on one knob is the suspect that we are having on the suspicious nature of us against the Modi government. We all know, according to us, how he has compromised the Election Commission of India, how the ordinance of the appointment of the ECI was brought out, how the one nation, one tax, that is the GST, you next time you can, even I suggest you hold a survey on the GST out here amongst all the traders of India. They will know the result out here. You are suggesting for one nation, one law, one nation, one language, one nation, one culture. Ultimately what? One nation, one political party. Is that what the BJP wants? My friend Anandji has rightly pointed out, Rajiv Gandhi came to power on a sentimental issue. If there was one nation, one poll out there, that means we would have ruled out at that time all the states and even the central government.
Correct.
How dangerous it is for an Indian democracy out here. You just imagine the example and the plight. Right now also, Modi ji is trying a number of things to change the Indian constitution as it is, as we know it. So we have got our reservations, and I believe that in the near coming future, an honest debate on this will be taken out. It's not that disruption is not good for the democratic country like India, but whether a positive disruption is being done or is it a hidden agenda that is being worked out, the
Right.
questions need to be answered first.
Sir, the first violation of the spirit of one nation, one election was done when a government was ceremoniously sacked, and that was not done by the BJP. The other aspect is there is a difference between changing the constitution and improving it for the better of Bharat. So there are two different ways to put it and to look at it. Thirdly, sir, the moment you are into a one nation, one election mode, this entire aspect of defection, toppling of governments itself becomes a deterrent, because the tenure of the government which comes after toppling a government is itself limited. So the motivation to do it itself comes down. So that is also a deterring effect that will happen. So please consider that. Dharnidharanji, coming to you, Zafar Islam, and then coming to you. Yes, Zafar Islam.
So, Anand, I heard Kamru Chaudhary ji and others also. Ranganathan ji has made very valid points and elaborated it as well. I think there'll be concerns of other political parties, and I'm not even for a moment thinking that everybody will come around without debating it, without discussing it. We want a healthy debate on this issue because it appeals to the people of the country. It is not for the political parties to think through what will benefit them. It is for the political party to think what will benefit the country and what will benefit the people. And those who are criticizing this proposal of one nation, one election, they must also introspect what their party had been doing and had done in the past. As you rightly pointed out, the violation of Article 356 time and again by Congress party. All I am trying to tell you that today I do not want to make any negative comments against any political parties. All I want to encourage them to have a sensible debate, be a responsible political party, understand the sentiments of the people, must understand what will take India ahead, how much resources are being vested for conducting election in every year, how much, as you rightly pointed out, Anand, that the model code of conduct, it's a disruptive process.
Right.
When country is growing, and we are in a growing phase. India is a country where everyone globally is looking, is when they want to put their growth capital, India is the destination. And who is becoming deterrent? Yeah, our own policy, our own system and processes. And I think you must consider all these things before thinking about your own political party and benefit what you will, small benefit you will get by not having a simultaneous election.
True. Dharnidharanji, for the DMK, right now national and state elections simultaneously is into your advantage, because it just finished it off in one go. You don't have to go back into election mode only. I wonder why, in a position of advantage, you see disadvantage here. Final word. I have to wind up after this. Yes, please.
No, it's because something is good for us doesn't mean that it's good for the country. No, we stand for the country. I'll
Or
tell
is
you
it
one thing.
because what Modi proposes, DMK
No,
opposes?
no, no. I think that's not true. I think, see, I personally also have written
That's
with
the
evidence
reason.
two
That's the
articles
reason.
No,
on
no,
why one nation.
let's listen to it. Yeah.
So let me, sir. See, also I saw the report, and also your channel. Because one thing is baffling: no Westminster country has one nation, one election, like you have pointed out, Canada or even Germany. For example, in Canada, Canadian election supposed to happen in 2025. Last election was in 2020.
We should not be guided by Canada and others.
No.
We
So
should be
wait,
guided
wait.
by our own constraints
Let,
and
let's
our own
let's
benefits.
let's discount that question because we just said should
Cuba,
there
for
be
example,
international
Cuba
templates that should be
can-
followed, and people
Cuba
said we
election
can
was
learn
in
from them.
2020.
We collectively humbly take the suggestion that we should have our own format, something that works for us as a country, because
see.
we are not like any other democracy. We are very different. So let's
we're not
appreciate
looking
that, and we have been able to conduct elections at 640 million people in 24 hours compared to what the US has not been able to do in so many decades, despite it being a two-party system. So taken,
see,
that point taken. Yes.
I'm not
Please
disputing
complete.
it, but I'm mentioning that the report has mistakes. That
Okay.
one nation, one election in these countries. That's point one.
Okay.
You mentioned about Nehru and Congress having this one nation, one election until 1967. But the point we have to notice is that India became independent and then republic, and then elections were held for the first time. Which is why I'm saying one nation, one election to begin with was not by design. You can't have the election for the union government one day, and then for Tamil Nadu after 6 months. Then after Andhra after 8 months, after let's say for Karnataka after 12 months. Every election will have to happen at once because the country did not have a government before. So it was not by design. And again, when it comes to my party stance, even in healthcare, a lot of things in 1970s have been changed now to evidence came. Back then, carbs were people said you can eat carbs. In 1970s, doctors advocated eating carbohydrates, but now we don't, right? Because it's so similarly with evidences, we change our opinion. That's how we based on evidence.
Let's not go down the doctors and marketers rule, because those who said that coal is bad for teeth today saying our toothpaste has coal in it. So that comes down a full cycle. We can be far more measured in our approach, saying going forward what is healthy for us as a country. I just hope good sense prevails. We are able to rise above politics and do something in the interest of the country going forward through this JPC, rather than trying to show one-upmanship that you propose, I oppose, I propose, then only it can go forward. That kind of an attitude is only going to hurt the country. I think all politicians are mature enough to do that.
Last point.
I'm sorry, I'm way over time. I have to. Okay, 10 seconds. Tell you.
For example, in every Indian family, when child is in school, they say for education, money does not matter. That's what the father says. Similarly, foundation for this country is democracy. So we should not look into money when it comes to democracy, right? So elections, we can't say money is important.
No, it's not just about money, sir. It's about where this money is being wasted or is being spent. It's not about the entire electoral process costing something. It's about that amount of money and time.
For the welfare of the people.
It's also about policy time that is
state.
dedicated towards polls. Every politician today is thinking about what do I need to do to win the next election. They are not thinking about what do I need to do to leave a legacy or a lasting impact that helps the country and its people. That's where the fundamental difference of thought process has to change. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Viewers, quickly taking you through the takeaways of the News 18 Pulse survey on One Nation, One Election. This plan enjoys very strong, or this move enjoys strong overall support, at least from our respondents, across states and union territories. 69% think Bharat should follow global model of simultaneous elections wherever it is working in various nations. There is also support for the proposal, which is very, very strong in central, east and northern parts of our country. Respondents in the south, the west and also northeast are slightly apprehensive. Strong belief that simultaneous polls will save public money. 55% say simultaneous voting won't create confusion among voters. 49% said there's no problem in differentiating between state and national candidates. 72% of our respondents indicated one poll, one nation, one poll, will improve voter turnout. And 70% respondents say simultaneous polls will actually strengthen our democracy. And the final takeaway, respondents say fewer elections equals lesser disruptions to daily life. Well, on that note, we're going to take a very, very short break. Did secessionists use must satellite to derail Bharat? Is there a Starlink to what's happening on the Myanmar, Manipur, Mizoram border? Stay with us.
Getting in news now, Trump has said that he would use economic force against Canada. He further said that we don't need anything that Canada has. We have a right not to help Canada with any financial issues. Earlier, Trump said that why are we supporting a country which 200 billion a year, there should be a state. Now, ex-Canadian PM has hit back at Donald Trump's threat to use economic force to absorb Canada into the US. Trudeau earlier said that this isn't a snowball's chance to join the two. We have Akansha joining us on the broadcast. Akansha, very good morning. Tell us about this recent statement coming in from Donald Trump, and what do we make out from this?
Right, Kaveri, a very good morning to all our viewers. We all know that this is not a first time that Donald Trump talked about having Canada as the 51st state and have Justin Trudeau join in as the governor. But this time, he's in the press conference when he made those comments, he's of course been more expansionary in his attack. He's, as you rightly mentioned, he's to several key imports that America does not need from Canada. That also includes the automotive, lumber and dairy sectors. He said that the United States imported 614.3 billion worth of goods from Canada in 2022. And this was, remember, only his second news conference since his election victory in November. And Trump has already reiterated his intent to impose substantial tariffs on Canada and Mexico. That is when he returned to the White House. Earlier also, he had threatened to impose a 25% tariff on all imports from these neighboring nations. But what's very interesting and perhaps of concern for Canada is, of course, how he has been consistently suggesting to annex Canada. And that is why it is a very tackled Justin Trudeau now retorting when he says that there isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Canada would become part of the United States. Workers and communities in both our countries benefit from being each other's biggest trading and security partner, is what he had to say. But many critics are of the view that Donald Trump is perhaps using this as a negotiatory tactic, and this is also a pressure tactic before he takes over, and will use these tariffs and the North America Trade Agreement Treaty to exercise more pressure on Canada. But important to highlight, Kaveri, that this is good news, in that we've already shared how Justin Trudeau sounds extremely rattled by this development. At the same time, the Liberal government is under a lot of pressure. They are being blamed for Donald Trump and the bombastic sort of statements that are coming in from him. Melanie Jolie has also taken to X, where she's saying that President-elect Donald Trump comments show a complete lack of understanding of what makes Canada strong. And our economy is strong, our people are strong, will never back. So, look at the timing. At a time when the Liberals in Canada are going through a major political sort of overhaul, they are also standing on very shaky ground where they do not have a leader to sort of project as a front runner after Justin Trudeau steps down. He's already prorogued the House of Commons until March of 2025. So, it's a very, very critical, fragile moment. They are very vulnerable right now, the Liberals. And so I think Donald Trump is also utilizing the timing to attack Canada.
Getting in news now, Trump has said that he would use economic force against Canada. He further said that we don't need anything that Canada has. We have a right not to help Canada.
A high-level probe has been launched into the Starlink signals case in Bharat. All top agencies have been roped in. All top agencies have been roped in for the probe, including the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, or MeitY, National Technical Research Organization, or the NTRO, and intelligence agencies, in order to find out more. Now, this has happened after two major incidents have signaled the use of Starlink satellite communication devices despite denial from Elon Musk. The Andaman police is in touch with Starlink after the recovery of more than 6,000 kilograms or 13,000 pounds of meth aboard a Myanmar boat. Now, this boat was carrying sacks of suspected contraband. There were 6 Myanmar nationals who were detained, and their routes were negotiated with the help of Starlink devices. That's what the cops found out. Sources say the device has an unmatched capability to create a Wi-Fi hotspot in areas, helping smugglers and traffickers. Sources are also telling CNN News 18 that even though Starlink regulatory approval is pending in Bharat, concerns have been raised over signals being found in the border areas, both on sea and on land. Even in Manipur, adjoining Myanmar, this was noticed. During a raid in December 2024 that was conducted in the Kera Khunu area of Imphal East, where arms and ammunition were found, Myanmar-based research group possibly gave these handheld to rebel groups. That's what sources are telling us. There is more information which suggests that this is actually a password-free device. There's no need to log in, and it was found during a raid. And according to senior cops, Manipur's People's Liberation Army, or PLA, which is a Manipur-based organization, has used Starlink devices during shutdowns because the PLA initially accessed the service in Myanmar. And they later found that some of these Starlink devices, these devices are working in some areas of Manipur also. Perhaps because the borders are not very clearly defined. Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow ORF, is with us, and Paujal Chaba, Executive Editor of The Frontier in Manipur, is also with us. My namaste to you gentlemen. Please tell our viewers, Mr. Chauba, is this a concern? Is it because the borders are not very clearly defined there that this could happen?
I think that everything is possible. What is happening in Manipur, the rest of India knows. We're in a 20-month conflict right now. And this impasse, there is no hope. There's no light at the end of the tunnel still. But however, as you can see that Manipur, as we are close to Myanmar. And even before this conflict happened, our border, which is around like 400 kilometers, is a very porous border.
Okay.
And its affinity, and also with the Golden Triangle, there's a lot of smuggling of arms, drugs, meth, you name it. Everything is like available in the black market in many places, especially in Myanmar. All the AK-47s, all the arms and these weapons, which even the Indian government still does not have, including Austrian made pistols, you name it, AK-47, M16 rifles, which was there in the recoveries of the police. And we can see that there are a lot of arms and ammunition which are not made in India, but what rather it is smuggled from other countries, Myanmar to Myanmar, and Chinese-made weapons. So of course, along with that comes various other electronic equipments like drones, spyware, and of course, this communication device of Starlink. We were the first one who brought out this news because when I looked into the press release, which was given to us by the police, they said it was an international satellite communication device. But with a closer look, it turned out to be a Starlink device. So we brought it out, and this was the first one which the police, along with the paramilitary troops, had seized in a raid at Imphal East, which is around like 10 kilometers and almost within the heart of the Imphal area.
Right.
So I believe that, of course, this satellite is being a device, the Starlink device is being used because Manipur has suffered a lot of internet shutdowns in the past, at least 4 times.
So in your investigation, allow me to interrupt you, please. In your investigation, or when you got to know and you reported this first, like you said, did you try and test this out? Did the cops try and test it, whether it is working in and around the border areas with Myanmar? Or is there any signal being received? Because Elon Musk has said that these signals are disabled over Bharat. But what did you find?
From my sources, I have found that it was working. But legally, I cannot go to the police and ask them to say that whether it was working or not. It's currently under investigation. So they have put the...
but your sources confirmed that it was working on Indian soil. It was working in Manipur.
Yeah, otherwise, what would be the need to bring it over here? That is one thing. And the proximity with as you had pointed out earlier, with Myanmar, is very close.
Right.
And like say 25 kilometers in the eastern part, you can just cross over to the border, to the Myanmar side.
Correct.
And from there, people can come in, different things. And the porous border is like a 400-kilometer line. So from any point of the border, people can smuggle in weapons, people can bring in things. It happens all the time. So I believe that, and from my sources, that it was working.
So, phenomenal that you tell us this, and that corroborates with what the Andaman police also seized on the sea level. Now, there again, the international waters, the border area, is this possible, Sushant Sareen? Because this brings back what could happen with the Pakistani communication lines and their towers, mobile towers close to along the LOC, and those working on the Indian side. So similar aspect. Is that possible? And that too, but Elon Musk has said geo satellites, and then the moment the Indian border starts, it's disabled, it can't work. But if this is possible, then we have a concern.
So, it's as far as mobile signals are concerned, it's easy to, in a sense, block them, even intercept them. I'm not so sure about the Starlink internet signals or communication systems. But you remember there was a time when you had the Thuraya phones.
Yes.
And initially when the Thuraya phones came, they were supposed to be foolproof, right? Or it was the terrorists' go-to communication system until the Russians, located a signal from, I believe, a Chechen warlord and bombed the hell out of the guy. And that is when people realized Thuraya is not that easy, and now nobody hears of Thuraya anymore. So Starlink is the new Thuraya, if I can use that phrase. But the thing is, it probably is a little more complicated intercepting and blocking these signals, but it's not impossible, number one. Number two, in the case of Manipur, it is possible that, there could be some spillover of the signals in the border regions, maybe a couple of kilometers into the Indian borders. I'm not sure that you can precisely block signals according to how the border runs, especially in those kind of regions where, there are dense forests and, these are very remote regions, some of them. The same would apply probably in the Andamans because at one level, beyond 12 kilometers of sea, it's international waters, right? So technically you are allowed to use them. And an equipment like Starlink would be, I think, extremely useful for ships, for any maritime vessel for that matter. And of course, it would then, of course, be used by pirates, smugglers, all kinds of other characters would also partake in it. So it is possible that in the Andamans, the recovery was partly because, again, the Myanmar factor was there. And in Myanmar, for example, a lot of the rebel groups tend to use Starlink. Now, Myanmar really doesn't have a very functional government right now. And we know that organizations like Starlink, for example, in Ukraine, they have provided the most reliable internet signals,
Yes.
right? The internet and communication signals through Starlink. Even in some other parts of the world, hotspots, Elon Musk, in his activist role, has decided that he's going to provide those facilities out there. Now, in Myanmar, for example, where the Americans are extremely hostile to the junta out there, and there is a kind of a civil war going on, there are a lot of rebel groups which would want to use something like the Starlink communication facilities. And some of those guys are, of course, there's an intersectionality between them and some of the drug smugglers and others along the length and breadth of Myanmar. So it is quite possible that, it was because of that they've come into India. But it's important to understand that I don't think a guy like Elon Musk would want to risk the operation of Starlink in India by violating Indian rules and regulations, because already the negotiations with the government of India are at a fairly advanced stage. There are a couple of Indian companies also making a pitch for satellite internet connections at ONOE. So he wouldn't want to lose out on that race, a market as big as India. And I don't think that there would be any nefarious reasons why some of those signals are spilling over into the Indian border states. or some parts of
No, but there
Indian
has to be a way that this can be tracked. Paujul, quickly,
might be
just
easier.
let me just ask him
If
if
we actually have Starlink facilities in India, because then I'm sure the licensing requirements would require ability to
no,
intercept communications as well.
but even if these porous borders are there, and if is the range more than just 1 or 2 kilometers along the border, Paujul Chaba? Final word. And
Yes.
is there a mechanism how this can be tracked?
For the mechanism, I'm not sure because I'm not an expert on the subject. But what I know is that the Starlink device was working and it was communicating in Manipur. So even then, the border might be at least like say 25 to 30 kilometers from the place where the satellite this device was found. But I'm pretty sure that it was being used and it was able to be, utilized during the times of internet shutdown in Manipur, which has been happening incessantly. Like it was clamped down by the government at least by 4 times, 3 months, 4 months, etc.
Right.
Like that. That is the issue. So I believe that the people who have sourced this particular device
Right.
have used it for communication purposes.
Right. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen, for your thoughts. And let's hope this concern is addressed sooner than later. But clearly, those with devious plans look for newer ways and tend to adopt new technology faster than those who are happy with the conventional modes and want to use it for a greater good. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, clash of Bharat-Bangladesh at the Bharat-Bangladesh border, and it's the locals who are trying to thwart and help the BSF push back smugglers and also provocation from the other side. Stay with us.
Co-powered by
Getting in news now, Trump has said that he would use economic force against Canada. He further said that we don't need anything that Canada has. We have a right not to help Canada with any financial issues. Earlier, Trump said that why are we supporting a country which 200 billion a year, there should be a state. Now, ex-Canadian PM has hit back at Donald Trump's threat to use economic force to absorb Canada into the US. Trudeau earlier said that this isn't a snowball's chance to join the two. We have Akansha joining us on the broadcast. Akansha, very good morning. Tell us about this recent statement coming in from Donald Trump, and what do we make out from this?
Right, Kaveri, a very good morning to all our viewers. We all know that this is not a first time that Donald Trump talked about having Canada as the 51st state and Justin Trudeau join in the governor. But this time, he's in the press conference when he made those comments. He's of course been more expansionary in his attack. He's, as you rightly mentioned, he's to several key imports that America does not need from Canada. That also includes the automotive, lumber and dairy sectors. He said that the United States imported 614.3 billion worth of goods from Canada in 2022. And this was, remember, only his second news conference since his election victory in November. And Trump has already reiterated his intent to impose substantial tariffs on Canada and Mexico. That is when he returns to the White House. Earlier also, he had threatened to impose a 25% tariff on all imports from these neighboring nations. But what's very interesting and perhaps of concern for Canada is, of course, how he has been consistently suggesting to annex Canada. And that is why it is a very tackled Justin Trudeau now retorting when he says that there isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Canada would become part of the United States. Workers and communities in both our countries benefit from being the biggest trading and security partner is what he had to say. But many critics are of the view that Donald Trump is perhaps using this as a negotiatory tactic, and this is also a pressure tactic before he takes over, and will use these tariffs and the North America Trade Agreement Treaty to exercise more pressure on Canada. But important to highlight, Kaveri, that this is good news, in that we've already shared how Justin Trudeau sounds extremely rattled by this development. At the same time, the Liberal government is under a lot of pressure. They are being blamed for Donald Trump and, the bombastic sort of statements that are coming in from him. Melanie Jolie has also taken to X, where she's saying that President-elect Donald Trump comments show a complete lack of understanding of what makes Canada strong. And our economy is strong, our peace are strong, will never back. So, look at the timing. At a time when the Liberals in Canada are going through a major political sort of overhaul, they are also standing on very shaky ground where they do not have a leader to sort of project as a front runner after Justin Trudeau steps down. He's already prorogued the House of Commons until March of 2025. So, it's a very, very critical, fragile moment. They are very vulnerable right now, the Liberals. And so I think Donald Trump is also utilizing the timing to attack Canada.
Getting in news now, Trump has said that he would use economic force against Canada. He further said that we don't need anything that Canada has. We have a right not to help Canada with any financial issues. Earlier, Trump said that why are we supporting a country which $200 billion a year, there should be a state. Now, ex-Canadian PM has hit back at Donald Trump's threat to use economic force to absorb Canada into the US. Trudeau earlier said that this isn't a snowball's chance to join the two. We have Akansha joining us on the broadcast. Akansha, very good morning. Tell us about this recent statement coming in from Donald Trump, and what do we make out from this?
Right, Kaveri, a very good morning to all our viewers. Now, we all know that this is not a first time that Donald Trump talked about having Canada as the 51st state and have Justin Trudeau join in the governor. But this time, he's in the press conference when he made those comments, he's of course been more expansionary in his attack. He's, as you rightly mentioned, he's to several key imports that America does not need from Canada. That also includes the automotive, lumber and dairy sectors. He said that
The clash at the India-Bangladesh border on Tuesday, a clash that erupted near the 47th pillar of the Indo-Bangladesh border in the Kailashaher Maguruli village. Now, this is on Tuesday afternoon, where Bangladeshi smugglers were reportedly attempting to transport hand-rolled cigarettes across the border. When two patrolling BSF Jawans intervened, tensions flared. The smugglers allegedly insulted and challenged the BSF personnel. In pursuit of the smugglers, the BSF Jawans crossed the border into Bangladeshi territory, sparking a confrontation. Bangladeshi border guards, the BGP, soon arrived to mediate, but local villagers became aggressive, attacking the BSF personnel and attempting to seize their weapons. Meanwhile, the BSF earlier in the day increased vigilance and surveillance at the India-Bangladesh border to prevent infiltration, smuggling and trafficking amid instability in Bangladesh. Kamalika Sen-Gupta now joins us. Kamalika, increasingly the fencing efforts are also being backed by villagers on the Indian side who are urging the BSF to complete the border fencing at the earliest.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same situation is there in Tripura and Bengal. And specifically, this is a situation which developed in Kailashaher in Tripura, in North Tripura. And let me tell you, a vast area in North Tripura is also has a boundary with Bangladesh. And there this incident happened, which is very concerning. In Malda, in Bengal, and also in Kailashaher in Tripura, both the places we see that the role of border guard Bangladesh in Malda was questionable. They protested, but on Tripura, in Kailashaher, they somehow came and stopped, tried to resolve the issue. But the people on the other side in Tripura, they were very, they were all coming up with all slang languages and everything. And they also tried to snatch in things. So this is a concern. This is a new feature, Anand, which has developed along the side of the border, which is concerning because, the people from Bangladesh, the BGP, they are, objecting to various things. This is a new trend, but let me tell you, in both the cases, the villagers and the BSF, they have given a befitting reply. And
Right.
the BSF also had flag meetings thereafter. In Balda, the situation is normal today and the fencing work is going on. And the security has been beefed up in both the places.
Right. Thank you for your inputs, Kamalika. With that, we call it a wrap on this edition of The Right Stand. Brass Tacks with Zaka right now.
Green Lamb Laminates presents CNN News 18 Primetime Studio.
Good evening. You're watching Brass Tacks with me, Zaka Jacob. We're coming to you live from the CNN News 18 Primetime Studio presented by Green Lamb Laminates. The question that we're asking tonight and the question that we asked over 4,500 respondents in the News 18 Pulse One Nation, One Election survey, is India ready for One Nation, One Election? Today, the Joint Parliamentary Committee, which has been constituted by Parliament, began deliberating on exactly that question. 39 members from opposition and ruling benches. The opposition was led by the Congress and the TMC. Their basic contention, their basic question is, why is the centre in such a hurry to push through with this idea of simultaneous elections for Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha? Perhaps they should hear what the country has to say. Perhaps they should watch and listen to and heed the message from the voters and the citizens of India who have taken part in the News 18 Pulse One Nation, One Poll survey. We conducted this survey over a 3-week period between December and January. Our survey revealed an overwhelming support for the idea of One Nation, One Election. In fact,